Shalom. I'd like to say all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rakah Kodesh. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of GMS, or the true leaders of Israel today. And salutations to my Akim, who do this work in truth and sincerity, who are risking their lives and their freedoms to do so, as well as the scattered Israelites who come looking like the heathen, but are not by way of their forefathers' seeds who are Israelite men. The true name of the Most High is Yahweh, and his son's name is Yahushai, and the Lord's solely chosen people are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as we're the ones who suffer under the curses in the book of Deuteronomy. This is your brother Escalate from the GMS Jamaica Kingston camp, and breaking news from America, which America is known as Mystery Babylon the Great in the scriptures, as it pertains to Revelation chapter 17. From WW3, Biden declares a national security emergency over Russia with new executive order. Now, the reason why this information is important is because when it comes to the prophecy of World War III, let's just get that real quick. This is Revelation chapter 11, verse 14. The second woe is past, talking about World War II, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. So the third woe is coming, man. And that third woe is World War III. And this third woe will lead to, Revelation chapter 16, verse 16, and he gathered them together in a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. So, Armageddon is spoken about right here in Revelation chapter 16, and it will be Yahweh Shemishai that will gather all of these heathen nations together over there in the so-called Middle East. All right. And at the forefront of it will be Russia versus America. All right, so America and her allies, which includes the NATO, and of course the state of Israel, the Israelis, and then Russia versus Russia and her allies, which will include, these Hamite nations, which are the so-called African nations. It will also include the Turkish, all right, people, and then it will also include the Iranians rather, who are called the Persians, or who were once called the Persians, okay? And whatever other allies will join onto Russia. In the book of Joel chapter 3 and verse 9, it says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. All right, so the Gentiles here is talking about these heathen nations, man. All right, as they all have, the capabilities of going to war. All right, and they will have nuclear capabilities, which will happen at the climax of World War III, man, which will then, at the end of it, right, America will lose, all right, America and her allies, rather, and then America's enemies are all going to shoot missiles towards her and destroy her with thermonuclear fire, okay, and then with that, America's own allies will actually aid in that destruction. They will turn against her as well, as it pertains to Revelation chapter 17, verse 16, okay? So beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I'm strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. Let the heathen be awakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, Yahweh's judgment, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. So it's obvious, man. There's a reason why over there in the so-called Middle East, there has been great tension for all of these decades, man. It has a purpose, man, okay? Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe, come get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. So once again, that so-called Middle East is that valley of decision, okay? So World War III is in the scriptures, and it will happen, and Russia is a very important part of this. And what we're seeing right now are the developments towards this prophecy. All right, the prophecies just don't pop off, just like that. It's a building process towards it. All right, and this is what we're seeing. So let's play the video.
This is WW3. Joe Biden has now signed an executive order and has declared that Russia is a national security threat to the United States. They have also rolled out a series of sanctions. Now, they're trying to say that Russia's doing this, Russia's doing that. We've heard this for years coming from this side. Now they're calling back individuals from their posts, and it's all tied into this multi-layered executive order that is going against Russia. Now, if you missed it, Russia is sending troops and big-time equipment into the border area around Ukraine. They swooped down into Crimea, and there's not a whole lot of talk about what's being done on the other side. What we do know is this: the White House and the Treasury put these actions against Russia into motion. They're saying that the U.S. is expelling 10 of its diplomatic personnel from the Russian embassy in Washington, which is also said to include intelligence officials. The U.S. will ban American banks from being able to buy new Russian sovereign debt starting on June 14th. So on June 14th, this thing goes into motion, and I expect we will see things escalate from here. It seems that this is what this administration likes, and this is the direction that they're heading. We also heard yesterday about all this troop thing, being pulled out of Afghanistan. I'm not buying none of that. We've heard that so many times before, even under the Trump administration, and it was a shuffling of troops. Seems you need some troops real quick close by in the Ukraine area. We're going to have to keep an eye on where these troops go that are said to being pulled from Afghanistan. So this is some of the latest, so people know. Make sure to join me.
All right, so that's the information right there, man. And, I have to make it clear as well that before World War III, the War of Armageddon pops off, man, the mark of the beast, which is the microchip, will be made mandatory. It will be fully implemented. We will hit that Revelation chapter 3 verse 10, that hour of temptation. All right, so the mark of the beast has to come first before World War III. Anyway, Russia, very important, man, to biblical prophecy. And by the way, we also know that the so-called Middle East is that area of contention because of the prophecy in Joel chapter 2 verse 20, which talks about the East Sea, all right, which is the Euphrates River, and the utmost sea, which is the Red Sea. All right, and when you look at the location of that, you can clearly see, man. Go and look at your map. Okay, so let's go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38, and verse 1. And the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. So Gog and Magog is referring to the Russians, so-called, right? Now the Russians, they are in fact Edomites, okay, who are these so-called white people, okay? The Americans, it is the Edomites that rule this wicked kingdom today. And as you can see, there is tension between these Edomites, man. All right, you have America and NATO, which is one set of Edomites that are ruling, versus the Russians, which is another set of Edomites. All right, and then, what the scriptures say, man, if Satan be divided against, how then can his kingdom stand? So it's a kingdom that is divided, man. All right, and that is all a part of biblical prophecy. Okay, so the land of Gog and the land of Magog are the Russians, because they dwell in that land today where Gog and Magog once dwelled. And say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor. All right, so the entire military, you know what I'm saying? The Russian military, they're going to go to war. Even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So Russia will be going to war with allies. Persia, who are the Iranians. So I mentioned this before. Okay. Ethiopia and Libya with them. So these are the so-called Africans, the Hamite nations. All of them. And by the way, the Iranians, who were once called the Persians, they are the biblical Elamites. All right. All of them with shield and helmets. And you can actually Google that as well, man. Okay. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands and many people with these. So Gomer and the house of Togarmah is talking about the Turkish. All right. And that's why we've seen, this deteriorating relationship between America and Turkey. The last time I checked, it seemed a little bit better, but, that prophecy has been building as well, So Turkey is more aligned with Russia and Iran. All right. So this is the prophecy, man. Now let's go to the next scripture in Isaiah chapter 13 and verse 17. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them. Okay, so the Medes are talking about the Russians. which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Okay, so the Russians are going to be stirred up, just as was read in Ezekiel chapter 38, and it's going to come to the point where they simply won't care what it is that America has to offer anymore, man. All right, because these countries, they all do trades and whatever else, and they can all benefit from each other in whatever way, even though they have tension and whatever else, they still work with each other. But it's coming to the point where Russia will just not care, and all of these other these countries, these nations, they're all going to not care eventually, man, when they shoot their missiles towards America. Now, the scripture in Revelation chapter, is it 18? I think it's 18, where it talks about the destruction of Babylon. Let me just check real quick. Yeah, Revelation 18, and it talks about how when America's destroyed, that the rulers of these other nations, they'll look about it and they'll be like, oh, whatever. But at the end of the day, Yahweh Shemishah is going to put the spirit on them to shoot the missiles and to destroy America, man. All right. So by the way, right here, I can just read this real quick. Revelation 18 verse 10, standing afar off for fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, which is America, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is that judgment comes. So America is going to be destroyed by that thermonuclear fire, which then is a good segue into my last precept, which is Jeremiah chapter 51 and verse 11. And it says, make bright the arrows, which are these missiles, all right, the ICBM missiles. They have a purpose, man. All right, they were created for a reason. All right, in the scriptures it says that the Most High created the waster to destroy. Okay, gather the shields, the Lord Yahweh hath raised up the spirits of the kings of the Medes, which is talking about these Russians, man, for his devices against Babylon, which is America, to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of the Lord Yahweh, the vengeance of his temple, right? So there it is right there, man. All right, it's all going to come to that point, World War III, and then the destruction of America, which is Mystery Babylon the Great, and Russia. Very important part of this prophecy, and we're seeing that it literally develop in front of our eyes. So with that, I'd like to say all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Shemishai Bashim Kodesh Wa Abad Babal Shalom.